On January 3, 1995, three men made their move inside Parkhurst prison on the Isle of Wight. It's just after 6:30 p.m., and the cold air slips through the stone corridors of one of Britain's most secure prisons. Inside the gymnasium, the clang of weights and the shuffle of boots echo under the watch of guards. To them, it's routine, the last recreation period of the day. Then, chaos. A scuffle breaks out by the weight bench. Two men crash to the floor, and another pins them down. Guards rush in, shouting, dragging bodies apart. It looks like nothing more than a petty fight, the kind they break up every week. At 17:45, the instructor locked the gym, with the trio still inside. Staff did not notice that the group of 10 that had started in the gym had now reduced to 7. Because 3 of those men, Keith Rose, Matthew Williams, and Andrew Rodger, are already gone. Murderers and kidnappers, the kind of men society locked on an island fortress to keep them buried forever. The media calls it the British Alcatraz. Nobody has escaped in decades, and nobody is supposed to. The plan looks simple. Just a fight, a hidden key, and a ladder built in secret. But the real genius isn't in how they get out. It's in what happens next. The prison believes it's still in control. When it realizes the truth, Britain's most dangerous fugitives are already moving in the dark. Parkhurst isn't just another old British prison. It's the end of the line. Its walls stand 24 feet high, with domes that shred ladders and hands. Steel fencing snakes along the perimeter, lined with razor wire, alarms, and cameras, every inch of it engineered to keep the most dangerous men inside. Inside, the corridors twist in confusing patterns, with locked gates, coded doors, and officers on patrol day and night. No one escapes Parkhurst, or so the story goes. The prison holds lifers, contract killers, men who've already tried to break out of everywhere else. Even if you did make it over the wall, there's nowhere to run. The Isle of Wight is an island, surrounded by water, every ferry port watched, every road covered. For most inmates, dreaming about escape is pointless, but not for these 3. Inside the walls of Parkhurst, men serve time, but not all prisoners are the same. Matthew Williams serves a life sentence. He is not typical. He is a bomb maker, a man who sees physics where others see chaos. He can memorize the grooves of a key at a glance, reverse engineer any system, and carry its image in his mind for weeks. In a prison built to contain the body, his mind still roams, studying the guards, the locks, the walls, and the flaws. Keith Rose is older, quieter, and calculating. A former computer director imprisoned for kidnapping and blackmail, he thinks in logic and resources. Every clever plan needs funding, connections, and discipline, which he provides. Where Williams is restless and inventive, Rose is methodical. He is known among the lifers as the one who never gives up. Andrew Rodger is the muscle. Convicted of murder after a single vicious act, he thrives on confrontation. To Williams, every obstacle is a problem to solve. To Rose, it is a resource to manage. But to Rodger, it is something to smash through. He gives the plan its raw strength. They are not friends. They are a partnership, forged only because none of them can stand the idea of dying behind Parkhurst's walls. Every escape starts with a weak link, and in Parkhurst, it's the color-coded lock system, a detail that most prisoners ignore, but not Keith Rose. Parkhurst's reputation was built on concrete and razor wire, but its real strength lay in the color-coded lock system. Green locks controlled the internal doors, keeping prisoners moving only where guards allowed. Blue locks secured the cells, the most basic barrier between the inmates and the rest of the prison. And then there were the red locks, the most important of all. They sealed the gym and the outer gates, the final line between captivity and the outside world. Williams understood what most men ignored. A single red key could unlock the route to freedom. He's convinced that if they can replicate the red key, they'll have access to most of the prison's internal routes, workshops, and vehicle compounds. Williams is initially skeptical, but Rose's logic is simple. A key is just a piece of metal, shaped right, and the prison's metalwork class offers all the tools they need. Under the guise of making harmless art projects and machine parts, they begin stealing glances at keys dangling from sleepy officers' belts, memorizing patterns, sketching rough outlines on scraps of paper, and whispering details in corners where the security cameras don't reach. The hardest part isn't getting the shape right. It's doing it without being seen, and then grinding down the steel in Rodger's cell, bit by bit, whenever the prison noise drowns out the scraping of file on metal. For weeks, nothing seems to work. The first attempt bends and gets stuck in the music room lock, nearly exposing everything. But Williams keeps his nerve and fishes it out just before a guard returns. The second attempt is forged from stronger steel, and finally, in a quiet hour, it slides into the red lock and turns. A single click changes everything. The whole prison is suddenly open. But as the news spreads about other prisoners being caught planning a similar vehicle escape, the mood shifts. Security is tightened. The window of opportunity starts to close, and the plan needs to move fast. The key might open doors, but steel and concrete still rule the outside world. Parkhurst's perimeter is no accident of old design. It's a 20-foot fence laced with razor wire, and beyond it, a 24-foot concrete wall topped with a dome meant to defeat every grappling hook, rope, and ordinary tool. Williams knows what it means. If they're going to have a chance, they need a ladder taller than anything built for climbing. And it has to be strong enough to hold 3 grown men, but light enough to be carried in the dark by men who have nothing but adrenaline and desperation on their side. The workshop offers a solution. Andrew Rodger, the orderly person with access, volunteers to build the pieces. 6 lengths of central heating pipe connected to make a ladder that could bridge the last gap between captivity and the outside world. It's built over weeks, each segment hidden in the chaos of the metal shop, stashed behind benches and cabinets, invisible to guards who see only the mess of daily work. But progress doesn't wait for perfection. Just as the final preparations are coming together, Andy hears that the workshop is being relocated. If they wait, they lose everything: their tools, their hiding place, and their last hope for an escape. They make the decision. It has to happen now. The plan comes into focus, sharp and desperate. But then again, the third gate remains untested, a silent question mark that could ruin everything in one stubborn click. After the coast is clear, Williams runs ahead, unlocking gates, doubling back to signal the others, praying every second that he isn't seen, that a guard, dog, or chance encounter doesn't end 5 months of planning. He tests the first gate, and it unlocks. He tests the second, and it unlocks. He faces the third, hands shaking, breath shallow. It sticks. He twists, feels the metal bite, and then it gives way. The escape is now or never. But tools alone are not enough. They need a diversion, and the gym becomes their stage. At 17:45, during evening exercise, the guards are tired, distracted, and focused on the count. All it takes is a fight, and everywhere becomes rowdy. Guards rush in, shouting, pulling men apart. Now is the time. The 3 men slip out and vanish into the cold night while, inside, the doors clang shut and the head count is marked complete, no one yet realizing that the prison is already missing 3 of its most dangerous men. Andy, Williams, and Keith race into the workshop, assemble the ladder, grab the wire cutters and rope, and run for the fence. The ladder, built for the moment, is heavier than they hoped, but every second counts. They cut through the razor wire, prop the ladder against the wall, and climb, one by one, with every footstep risking a sudden shout or a beam of torchlight from the tower. At the top, Williams lashes the rope. Andy follows, and within seconds, all 3 are dropping to the other side, bruised, bloody, but free. No one yells, and no alarm rings yet. The three men vanish into the dark, leaving Parkhurst's walls holding nothing but questions. Their feet hit the ground on the other side of Parkhurst's wall, but their freedom is a lie. The prison is gone, but the island remains. They are on the Isle of Wight, a small patch of land surrounded by water, with no escape routes they can reach on foot. The island is now their new prison. The walls are gone, and the water is their new razor wire. They are outside the fortress, but still trapped within a cage. Williams, Keith, and Andy know every minute counts. Their new plan is audacious. It is not about simply escaping the prison. It is about leaving the island entirely. Their target is a small private airfield. Their goal is to steal a light aircraft and fly to the mainland. Keith claims to have a pilot's license and points out that 3 airfields are nearby, all within reach if they can find a car or stay hidden long enough. The group has a small stash of money, smuggled from inside. It's not much, but it's enough for a taxi, Keith's idea, and at first, Williams thinks it's mad. But the logic is ruthless. We're just 3 men on a cold street. No one knows what we've done. Not yet. They call for one at a local telephone kiosk, paying with cash that Williams remembers they'd brought in beforehand. However, prison staff later believed a possible 4th accomplice left the money, someone who helped but was never identified. The driver has no idea that 3 men in his backseat have just crossed the most infamous wall in Britain. At Sandown Airfield, their hope dies fast. The first plane is a shell, the battery gone, and nothing but a dashboard that flickers and then dies. Keith tries another, but the lock is too complex. Minutes bleed away, minutes they can't afford, minutes the police need to start ringing the island with checkpoints and dogs and patrols. They give up on the plane as there is no time to process the failure, no luxury for disappointment. They melt back into the darkness, the sound of police radios growing louder as the Isle of Wight's ring of steel begins to tighten. After leaving the airfield, the men walk for 4 or 5 hours, hungry and dehydrated after nearly half a day without food or water, their exhaustion mounting with every step. That night, they find a rundown shed, barely sheltered by a slab of plastic from the biting wind, and shiver together in the cold, waiting for dawn, and knowing the search outside has already begun. By now, the police response has grown massive. 250 officers fan out in systematic sweeps, combing every road, every port, and every mile of the south coast, transforming the Isle of Wight into a miniature Alcatraz. They have escaped the prison, but the island is a trap. As the sun rises, hunger gnaws at them, and nerves begin to fray. Williams and Andy want to wait and remain hidden. Keith wants to move and try to reach the mainland before the search closes every exit. They change appearance. Keith shaves his beard. Williams stares into his own eyes and sees, maybe for the first time, just how close the edge really is. Their faces are now in every police station, every shop, every port. The escape isn't over. Not yet. A prison dog handler finds a hole cut in the fence, and only then does suspicion bloom. At first, the staff runs a head count in the gym and assumes it's a clerical error or a mix-up, with 3 men missing, but no one panics yet. It isn't until the second roll call, when the same names echo back, unanswered, and the empty spaces remain, that the truth clicks into place. An officer bolts down the corridor and slams the alarm. But by this time, the escaped prisoners had already been gone for over 2 hours, unaware that, if they'd known how slow the discovery would be, they could have boarded a ferry and left the island before police even realized they were missing. Now sirens blare, and the word escape ricochets from the control room to every locked door and radio. Parkhurst locks down, helicopters slice the dark. Officers and dogs sweep the yards, and a ring of steel clamps down around every ferry port, every road off the island. But by the time the manhunt truly begins, the 3 fugitives have melted into the countryside, Hours ahead of the chase, the island suddenly vast and full of hiding places. For the first day, the three fugitives move only at night, avoiding roads, crawling through hedgerows, and ducking behind stone walls as patrol cars pass, their lights sweeping the empty lanes. They stay low, shivering in an abandoned shed, while the wind rattles loose planks and the plastic sheet barely holds back the cold. Ever the strategist, Keith shaves off his beard with a dull razor from his kit, changing his appearance enough to slip into a village shop and buy food with some of their smuggled money. Each transaction is a risk. Every step is a gamble. The police response is relentless. Search teams fan out from Parkhurst in concentric rings, moving farm to farm and house to house, guided by helicopters overhead and dogs on the ground. Officers question everyone they meet, including delivery drivers, local fishermen, and pensioners walking their dogs. Ferry terminals are watched round the clock, and every boat at the marina is checked and rechecked. The island's quiet fields and winding roads, once just part of the landscape, now feel like a maze designed to catch the desperate and the unlucky. For Williams, Rodger, and Rose, every hour brings new uncertainty. Hunger sharpens, nerves wear thin, and the question of trust becomes as real as the cold seeping into their bones. The shed offers no comfort. The search outside is methodical, patient, and closing in, but inside, time stretches and options shrink. Each decision now feels like it could mean freedom or capture. Now their escape is a simple race against time. The manhunt is closing in. Their only hope is to try to make it to the ferry terminal, hide, and blend in with the public. But the island is small. The police have eyes everywhere. The searchlights sweep across the fields, coming ever closer. The file is closed. Not for long. The hours crawl by, hunger presses in, and trust becomes thin as nerves fray, and the weight of their choices settles over the group. Williams wants to wait it out, to let the searchers grow tired and move on. But Keith insists on taking action, reaching for contacts beyond the island, even as Williams protests. Against Williams's wishes, Keith uses a village phone box to contact a friend, hoping for a van, for some way off the island. But in doing so, he takes a risk that cannot be undone. The hope for rescue is now mixed with the fear of betrayal, and what was once a united front is now three men walking separate mental paths, each one balancing hope against suspicion. Each hour that passes becomes heavier with the threat of exposure. Meanwhile, the police operation, massive and relentless, pushes further into every wood and farm. Officers brief that these are not ordinary escapees, but dangerous men, two murderers, one dubbed Psycho, whose desperation makes them doubly unpredictable. The searchers know that time favors the hunted only until a mistake is made, a track is found, or a routine check catches someone off guard. It is in this suspended state, trapped by an island and their own mistrust, hungry, exhausted, and unsure of what comes next, that the trio must decide to stay, to split, or to risk everything on a final move. In the uneasy hours that follow, the men's unity fractures. Frustrated and angry at Keith for making the call and putting them all at greater risk, Williams decides he can't trust anyone's plan but his own. He announces he's leaving, determined to find his way out or die trying. Andy and Keith choose to stay together, still holding out hope for a rescue or a window of opportunity. But the mood has shifted. Each man now moves with the knowledge that, at any moment, their luck could evaporate. They slip quietly from their shelter just before dawn, separating on winding backroads and silent hedgerows, hoping that distance will mean survival. The police, meanwhile, have closed the circle. Search teams, dog handlers, and a helicopter with thermal imaging flood the area, chasing every heat signature and shadow. A patrol car edges along a narrow lane and spots two men, heads down, moving quickly. Officers move in, and in a flash of confusion and shouts, Andy Rodger and Keith Rose are tackled, handcuffed, and the manhunt narrows to one. The muscle and the financier are back in custody. The chase for Matthew Williams, however, is not over. Williams, separated and alone, sees his last chance to slip away as sirens rise behind him. The island feels suddenly small for all its vastness. But for the authorities, the job isn't finished. One man is still at large, and the entire operation pivots to tracking him before he can steal a boat, stow away, or simply vanish into the night. Williams runs. He hears dogs in the distance, sirens echoing across the fields, and the distinct thump of helicopter blades cutting through the dawn sky. Every shadow feels like a trap, every sound a warning. Reaching the marina, Williams spots the kind of small boat he's been hoping for, something fast enough to take him to the mainland before the police can close in. But he's working against the clock and against his own frozen hands, struggling with thick ropes and tight knots as torchlight flickers along the docks. The cold is punishing. His fingers are numb, and his vision narrows from fatigue and the bone-deep chill that seeps through every layer of clothing. Overhead, the helicopter spotlight sweeps the water, searching for the shimmer of movement, the telltale trace of body heat. Williams knows his only hope is to slip beneath the surface, out of sight and out of range. He plunges into the freezing water, lungs burning with shock. For a moment, everything is silent except the roar in his ears and the desperate hope that the helicopter will sweep past, missing his outline in the icy blackness. But his body betrays him. Muscles seize, senses fade, and the cold becomes overwhelming. The police finally reach him. They pull him from the water, his body shuddering with cold. There's no fight left, and the escape is over. The genius mastermind, a man who planned to build a bomb and fly away, is defeated by a simple mudflat and a cold January night. The arrest comes fast. Williams barely remembers the hands grabbing his arms, the voices shouting, the blur of lights and uniforms. He's soaked, shivering, barely able to speak, and when they haul him to his feet, he offers no resistance. A medic checks his pulse and wraps him in a blanket. The helicopter hovers a moment longer, then banks away as the job finishes. News spreads within minutes. Rose and Rodger have already been picked up, their disguises failing to fool the police for long. Within 48 hours of the breakout, all three fugitives are back in custody, their faces splashed across every tabloid in the country. Parkhurst is locked down, shaken, and humiliated. Politicians demand answers. Journalists circle the island, recording every rumor and every accusation. Security reviews begin at once. New locks, cameras, and rules for every gate and every key. Inside solitary confinement, Williams feels the cold linger for days. His hearing comes back, and his sight returns. But the freedom he tasted is already fading into something like memory, distant, sharp-edged, impossible to reach. For Parkhurst, the legacy of the escape is immediate and lasting. No one forgets how close three men came to vanishing for good, or how luck and weather nearly let them slip the net. The headlines call it the most embarrassing breach in modern British prison history. Officials tighten every weakness. But the lesson stays. In every fortress, there's a crack. All it takes is time, patience, and men willing to risk everything for one more chance. The recapture of the trio was swift, but the consequences were just beginning. The escape was not an isolated incident. Following another high-profile breakout from HM Prison Whitemoor, the British government launched a full-scale inquiry, led by General Sir John Lermont. The following report would condemn the escape and the entire prison system. The inquiry found that the prisoners had escaped because security was loose and ineffective. The report went on to describe the initial manhunt as chaos. Radios and torches had uncharged batteries. Maps were illegible due to poor photocopies. The report added, in a blunt, cold tone, "There is little to commend in the way things were done." The investigation revealed an alarming truth. A phony stability had been achieved at Parkhurst, but only by surrender to the prisoners of control over their daily existence. The prison, the report found, was being run by the inmates, Bullying and intimidation were rampant. Phone cards were used as a new form of currency for drugs and gambling. There was no limit on how much cash a prisoner could hold. When 20 prisoners were transferred after the escape, the cash balance within the prison dropped by nearly £15,000. The report continued to expose a cascade of failures. The guards who were supposed to monitor the cameras were untrained and distracted. The governor, meant to lead, spent just 2 or 3 hours a week talking to staff and inmates, and over 50 hours on paperwork. Areas of the prison, including the visitors' waiting area, had no CCTV, allowing for a steady flow of contraband. The report even suggested that some staff members themselves may have been complicit in smuggling. The physical security was also a significant point of failure. The Victorian-era prison had been undergoing continual building work since 1988, but the project had stalled. Staff resisted temporarily closing the prison, fearing they would lose their jobs. This constant construction left the facility vulnerable. Most damning of all, the report discovered that one of the escapees, a qualified sheet metal worker, had been left alone and unsupervised to construct the ladder. The prison service publicly admitted that the escape was due to a failure of basic security procedures. The incident brought gross public humiliation upon the entire system. In response, authorities spent £1.2 million upgrading the prison's security, a direct consequence of a homemade key and a ladder of pipes. Ultimately, the escape led to Parkhurst's loss of its maximum security status, which was downgraded to a Category B prison. The fortress had lost. As for the men, their paths diverged. Matthew Williams, the mastermind, served 16 years after the escape. He was released in 2011. He would later call for prison reform, writing letters from his cell to his hometown newspaper. His security rating remained at Category A for a decade, with a high court deeming him a high escape risk. Andrew Rodger was released on license in 2006. In 2018, he was arrested for a road rage incident and given a community payback order. Keith Rose, as of 2017, was still imprisoned. He had won his legal battle against the Secretary of State for Justice, getting his security category downgraded to B. The 1995 Parkhurst prison escape story is not about a single break. It is about a battle of minds against a complacent system. It is a testament to how meticulous planning can expose a weakness in even the most fortified of places. The men did not gain their freedom, but they did prove a point. The file is officially closed. But the question remains, what other fortresses are just illusions? If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more true stories that prove the truth is always more complex than it seems.